All right, welcome back to WMAC Now with your host Chuck Stevenson, and welcome to the episode recap for episode 1 of the Ultimate Fighter season 30. So, Ultimate Fighter is back. It's going to be Team Pena versus Team Nunes, featuring the heavyweights and the ladies flyweights. Now, if you are new to the channel, don't be surprised if I focus more on what the ladies are doing because the channel is WMAC Now. So, I mostly focus on the ladies, but I thought I did a poll on a community post asking, if people wanted to see uh, or wanted me to do some coverage of this season. And it was 100% yes across, I forget how many votes it was, but it was a good number of votes and everybody wanted some coverage of it. So I decided I'm gonna take one for the team, jump on a grenade, watch each and every episode, and then do a recap afterwards. So this is first episode. Excuse me. And sometimes they do things differently from season to season. And the first thing they did with this one is they started showing the fighters. And the first fighter you saw was Julianna Miller, known as Killer Miller. She's an Invicta veteran. And then they they cut to Hannah Guy, who is known for beating Valerie Loretta in Bellator. And basically, they're going to different fighters and they're showing them saying goodbye before they go to the gym and really start the season off. Like they're in the fighter hotel before they really start filming for the season. They're just showing them saying goodbye to their wives or whatever. Or in Juliana Miller's case, she's talking to her grandmother, mentions her grandmother's not doing so well, which is sad to see. So then they cut to the two coaches, Julianna Pena and the current bantamweight champ, and then Amanda Nunes, the former bantamweight champ slash current featherweight champ. And each of them are busy doing like a mock draft with their coaching teams. They're each picking out who they really excuse me who they want to pick. Now sometimes you see this after like tryouts, and I don't know if they did actual tryouts or if they just took applicants and then picked the producers. I mean, just pick the applicants, but they didn't do like a tryout. They didn't have the fighters work out, and that's usually like a staple of the Ultimate Fighter. Sometimes is that the fighters at least do a workout with each other before the coaches pick who they're going to pick. But they didn't do that this season. At least they didn't show it on camera. So they're doing their mock little draft. They also went back and panned to more of the fighters saying goodbye. They showed Muhammad Usman, who's a heavyweight. He is the brother of UFC welterweight champ Kamaru Usman. Then they went to then they cut to Dana White, and he's talking about the coaches and how this one's so interesting because you've got Pena, who just beat Amanda Nunes, won a huge upset, and this is building up basically to the rematch. So then they also mentioned they brought Forrest Griffin back. So this is the 30th season of The Ultimate Fighter, and Forrest Griffin was the winner of The Ultimate Fighter Season 1. And basically they brought him back to do basically what Dana does on each show. Like he's the one flipping the coin. He's the one, basically he's playing host to the show. So it seems like Dana White's taking a bit of a back seat this season, at least so far. And it's Forrest Griffin coming to the forefront, which I thought is a good idea. I mean, Forrest Griffin, um, he's a charismatic guy, and he's been with the UFC since the Ultimate Fighter Season 1. I mean, he's not fighting anymore, but he is in charge of the performance institutes, like their athletic programs and stuff there. So he's still deep intermeshed within the UFC, and it's nice to see them use him on the production side. So pretty neat. So, Forrest Griffin flips the coin, and Nunes gets the first pick, and she decides to pick the fighter first, giving the first fight to Julianna Pena. So, for the ladies, Amanda Nunes picked Claire Guthrie, Brogan Walker, Caitlin Neal, and Catherine Paprocki, which Pena picked Helen Peralta, Juliana Miller, Hannah Guy, and Chantel Coates. Now, for me, the two favorites are Brogan Walker and Helen Peralta, and they're each on opposite teams, which is pretty good. That means they'll be on opposite sides. They won't necessarily face off each other early. Those to me are the two favorites. For the men's heavyweights, Nunes picked Eduardo Perez, Chandler Cole, Mitchell Sipe and Niall Bartling. And Pena picked Muhammad Usman. Zach, I'm probably going to murder his name, Peunga, Jordan Heiderman, and Bobby Maximus. And Bobby Maximus was on season 2 of The Ultimate Fighter, and he is back. That was like in 2005 was The Ultimate Fighter season 2. This guy's got to be ancient. I mean, he even talks about it. He's like, yeah, I admit I am the oldest fighter here. He's like, but I think I've still got some things to teach the younger guys. And yeah, as a heavyweight, that's true. You can definitely be an older heavyweight and still find success. This past weekend, before this recording, Andrei Arlovsky, at like 43, 44 years old, picked up a win. So interesting to see someone who was on the Ultimate Fighter season 2 come back for season 30. Wow. So good for Bobby Maximus. By the way, he was the last heavyweight picked, and Chantel Coates was the last lady pick, and she was not happy. Anyway, they go to the house, they pick the rooms, they make a big deal picking the rooms, or at least the fighters make a big deal out of it. Like the show didn't make a big deal out of it. And then they show the fighters, you like head towards the kitchen. A couple of them headed towards the alcohol. I forget which fighter it was, but one of the flyweights makes a joke that if there's going to be a fight this season, it's probably going to be between a flyweight and a heavyweight, which I thought was kind of crazy. And then her reasoning was that a flyweight who's going to be starving herself to make weight is just going to be seeing a heavyweight, eating whatever they want. And yeah, that was like the first thing the heavyweights started like cooking up steaks and stuff. So I kind of get it. They panned to like, what was going on to the fighters, interacting with each other. They show Julianna Miller and what is his name? Mitchell Sipe talking to each other out on the, what's that called? A gazebo, sitting out in a gazebo kind of thing. Sipe's talks a little bit of smack about Muhammad Usman, says that he was supposed to face Usman a few years ago, and then Usman backed out like the week of the fight, and then like a couple weeks later fought a scrub. Basically says Usman always fighting scrubs. And then Miller talked about her Invicta fight with Claire Guthrie that Guthrie won. I believe that was a split decision, and it was a very close fight, good fight. But she basically said she hopes to get that back during this season. Didn't really talk any smack about her, but just said that is a fight that I hope to get back this season. So then they cut to the first training sessions. First, it was Team Pena, and then Nunes came second. Now, whether that's how that actually worked out, who knows? The way they edit the show, it's hard to tell what goes on when. But they showed Pena's training first, and then Team Nunes. And, I thought it was neat because each of them approached the training a different way. Like Pena said straight up, the ladies and the men are separate because the weight classes are too far apart. Nunes shows them working the striking with some of her fighters. So a little bit of each from each team, the training. Then they decided to go to the first fight pick. So Team Julianna Pena got the first fight pick, and she picked from the heavyweights, from her team, Zach Punga taking on Niall Bartling. So from then on, the show, it was focused on the two fighters that are going to fight this week, which is typical Ultimate Fighter format. So they showed that some background on Zach. They showed that he was working at the time, working as a criminal investigator for like a county district attorney's office. He's from Colorado. He just started training full time. Mentioned how, his last fight, he fought someone who had just been cut from the UFC. It was the hardest fight ever, and realized like, oh, these guys are training full time. I'm going to have to start training full time. He has a wife and kids. He tried out and played for the Texans. I don't think he actually got to play for the Texans, but he was on the Houston Texans roster. If you're unfamiliar with the Texans, that's an American football team. He got cut from them, then played professional rugby for a bit. And then that's when he got into the law enforcement side, being a criminal investigator. And then he started taking up BJJ, and things rolled downhill from there, from BJJ into fighting. Then it cut to both fighters preparing. doing some game planning. Pena's told Zach basically like, this guy's just a wrestler, so we're going to keep it standing and we're focused on the striking. And for Nunes, I forget what Nunes was talking about with Niall. Basic like tough 30 fight prep talk is what it boiled down to. Then it focused on Niles Bartling. His life wasn't nearly as complicated, it seems, as Zach Punga. He's a farmer from Nebraska. His family farms hogs, pigs, like 365, 100, like, every day, like a lot, like fairly large size farm. He started wrestling at age 5 and has been doing that ever since. He is mostly a wrestler. He likes to go hunting with his brother. At one point back in 2018, he accidentally shot himself in the foot. Firearms accidents happen. That's all I'm going to say about that. The way he described it was really dumb. But anyway, I'm not here to go in on that. But that does drive me nuts when people do dumb stuff and then cause accidents with that. And then he turned full-time fighter after that. Like, after that was when he turned full-time fighter. Something about tying it into that, like realizing like, oh, I could have killed myself, stuff like that. So then it goes into the fight. And I got to be honest, this fight was terrible. Low-level heavyweight fight is the name of the game. Kyle really struggled to get Zach down to the ground, and Zach was easily outstriking him. So you got a one-dimensional fighter in there, a wrestler, versus a strike guy who can do it. He says he can do a bit of everything. Well, I know he can strike, and I know he can basically stop the takedowns. Now, Kyle did get a takedown and get to side control, and then locked up a scarf hold, but it seemed like kind of clueless on what to do with the scarf hold. It seemed like he wanted to do the the Alexei Olenek, like, choke him with the scarf hold choke. Couldn't do it. Zach was able to get back up, and then by the second round, Kyle was absolutely exhausted. Zach basically just picked him apart. Kyle tried to go for a couple takedowns. At one point, Kyle was stuck on the ground underneath. Zach was just pounded on him and doing better. Zach definitely strikes better on the feet than he does ground and pound. His ground and pound is not very impressive. The fight just sucked. Can I be honest? The fight was very one-sided, and it just sucked. It just sucked. It's heavyweights. I'm not a big fan of the heavyweight division. They're either sloppy strikers or they gas themselves out. And this fight was just bad. It wasn't very good. Anyway, it goes to the judges, and Zach, is it Payuga? Oh, I hope I'll have to go back and listen to it and try to do better next time. But sorry about that, Zach. But it goes to the judges, and Zach wins a unanimous decision. No surprise. Only 2 rounds fight. So Pena got to keep her pick for the flyweights, it seemed like. I think that's who made the next pick. And she picked Team Nunes's Caitlin O'Neill to take on her team's Helen Peralta. So that should be a good one. Caitlin O'Neill doesn't have the prettiest of records, but she's actually, I believe, the most experienced of the ladies flyweights on the show. Helen Peralta, she's an early favorite, hits very hard. She can definitely hurt people on the feet. Very good everywhere. Just pretty well-rounded fighter. Both fighters are fairly well-rounded. So it should be a good first fight. We'll see if Peralta lives up to her hype. So then they cut rather to, the usual this season on The Ultimate Fighter. And then they show some clips of what's going to happen. Looks like Helen Peralta has like a breakdown at one point, and Nunes is talking to her, and she's like on the verge of, or she is crying maybe. They showed, what's his name, Mitchell Sipe and Muhammad Usman. Looks like they do get to fight, and there's no love lost between those two. So that should be a good storyline there. We'll see when exactly that happens, whether it's first round or not. Who knows? Looks like it'll be an all right, season of The Ultimate Fighter. So Really, that's all I have. Those are my thoughts on episode 1 of season 30 of The Ultimate Fighter. Now, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you like the video, please don't forget to give it a like. And while you're at it, go ahead and subscribe to WMMA Now, the best, most complete women's mixed martial arts dedicated platform on YouTube. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.